welcome back to the channel. I'm Sarah from I Am Simple Natural Life. This channel is about helping you to find ways to live your life that feel natural and authentic to you. And today I'm talking about home education. So before I start, it is quite a big topic and I have a lot that I want to cover and I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm going to rattle through quite a lot, keep it at quite a top line level, and then I'll do some other videos to really dig into like all the detail for people that kind of want to know a bit more. So first of all, kind of like a little bit of housekeeping stuff. First of all, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I kind of forget to say sometimes on these videos, subscribe to the channel, please. I do new content every week and that way you'll get to see it and it will make me very happy. Right, housekeeping kind of stuff. I'm talking about home education. In the States, it's homeschooling. And that is a term that kind of has infiltrated to the UK. The reason I don't use the term homeschooling is because actually in the UK, homeschooling is, or in England at least, homeschooling is when your child can't access school for whatever reason and you are doing school at home. So you might be getting some sort of tutor support and stuff like that provided by the local authorities because for whatever reason your child can't access school. So that is homeschooling in the UK, whereas home education is when you have electively, is that the word? Electively? Anyway, you've chosen, shouldn't use posh words, should I? You have chosen to home educate your children. So in the States, that is called homeschooling, and in the UK, that's called home education. So just so we know what I'm talking about. Right, and I will just tell you a little bit more about my family because it's relevant to this. I've got 4 children. My eldest is 11 and she is severely disabled, physical and learning disabled, and she goes to a special school and she needs like a one-to-one teacher and like high level of support, and so that is her. I have 3 other children, a 10, 9 and 7-year-old, and they are all home educated. The 10-year-old went to school, went in reception year, so when she was 4, that's when you start in the UK, and she stayed there for a year and a term, and then I took her out, and the other 2 children have never been to school. So that's kind of relevant to the story. And the other thing to say is that when I'm talking about home education, specifically for us, we do something called unschooling. So what you'll find with home educators is that they might be very structured and really very much doing kind of school, but at home. Some people are semi-structured and do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then you've got people that are completely unstructured. And we do something called unschooling, which is kind of, basically we don't do any formal learning. It's all self-directed by the children. And so if they want to sit down and do, I don't know, like timetable exercises or workbooks or something, then we have those things available. They don't really ever want to do that stuff, but it's there. And equally, if they don't want to do that stuff, we do other things. So it's basically learning through life. So we're just living and they're learning all the time. But I'm not sitting them down at any point and saying, you must do this. Okay, so that's kind of a very broad what unschooling is. And that's one thing I will do a separate video on. And in fact, if while I'm talking, there are things that you wonder about or you want to know more about, put it in the comments and I'll see it, and then I can kind of direct the future content of videos to answer some of your questions. So please do that. That would be lovely. Because if you've got a question, other people probably have it too. Now, on to the kind of the meaty stuff. Why do we choose to home educate? It's kind of, that is a big topic, really big topic. So I kind of just did a bit of a list of some kind of top line reasons. No national curriculum. That for me is a really big one. So what I don't like about, so in the UK it's the national curriculum, there'll be some other kind of curriculum in basically in all countries that have formal schooling. What I have seen over the years is a real narrowing of the national curriculum. And so there is far less, there's like English, maths are like the two key focus areas. And kind of the other stuff, particularly like the more arts and creative kind of subjects, they've always been a little bit pushed to the side. You know, we really value the academics, don't we, as the sort of in the Western world. That's when you're doing really well if you're good at those kind of things. But, you know, if you wanted to be an artist or something, then, you know, that's not so good. And we place value on different topics. And a lot of it within the national curriculum comes down to actually the ability to test on these things. And you can test really easily on those subjects, and what has happened even within those subjects. So already the curriculum has become more narrow and less time is spent on sort of the wider subjects, and there's a big focus on like your maths and English kind of stuff. And then what I've seen is within that, it has then become really kind of formulaic, just because they want to be testing. And so you need to teach things in a way that then you can test to see if the children understood it. And actually, that's not even on my list. Testing. It kind of is. But I'll throw it in now. So the testing, it doesn't mean that you've actually learned it. So I don't know if you know, I had tests when I was at school and university and all of that. And we all kind of know that what you do is you learn it for the test, you do your test, tick your boxes or whatever, and then you forget it. So you didn't know it in the first place, okay? And that, I think, is something that the formal education system really falls foul of, so a lot of the testing is just kind of like a top line level, and it actually isn't getting to the depths of, does the child really understand this? So I don't like that. But all of this is just my opinion. I'm just telling you why we personally home educate. You know, everyone's got to do what they want to do, and that's very important. So yeah, no national curriculum, because for me, I don't like the narrowing of the subjects, and I don't like all the testing that now goes on. So that's that. No timetable. So hang on, sorry, that was my mum. My mum was ringing me. Hi, Mum. No timetable. We have the freedom to do what we want to do when we want to do it, and I love that. And I'm all about living a life that feels natural and authentic to you or to me, and that feels really natural and authentic to me. I don't want to be timetabled according to somebody else's schedule. So having to get up at a certain time to go and get them to school, when I don't really agree with a lot of the stuff they're doing in school, that used to kind of grate on me when I was taking my child for the year and the term that she did. It's hard when you don't feel that you're actually in alignment with what they're doing at school, to then live according to their timetable is quite hard. And it did impact on our family life, because then there's all the homework that you have to do. And, you know, at the age of 4, I had to limit her homework on a Sunday to an hour. She was just 4, you know, and this daughter is really like naturally compliant and happy to do kind of schooly stuff. You would look at her and you'd think, oh, she's, you know, she'd be all right at school, and she was. But I thought, is that actually what a 4-year-old should be doing? And it really did impact on our family time, and I didn't like that. So there was that part of it, but there's also the timetable for the child while they're at school, you know, and sometimes you could be, I guess the timetable doesn't allow for any creativity or flow state, you know, and I write, I'm an author, and I used to be a copywriter, and I love writing, and when I get in the zone, in the flow, you know, I could be writing for ages, and then another day I won't do any writing at all. And that's how I work. But a school timetable doesn't allow for that. You know, you're doing your English, you're doing your maths, you're doing your PE, and whether you're ready and your brain is in the zone for maths, that's neither here nor there. You're doing your maths whether you like it or not. And I don't feel that is the best way to learn. And if we can work with children so that, you know, when the times, I know with my children, with their freedom in terms of how they learn, it then means they might have a few days even when they're really in a flow state of really focusing on something, or even could be months. You know, I've one child, she really obviously gets into these sort of, she gets a real passion, and, you know, like she was devouring everything she could read about British birds. And now it's really handy. If I see a bird, I can say to her, "Oh, Alice, what is that?" So, you know, that's good. But she wouldn't have had that freedom to really delve into a subject when she's at school. So for me, that's one thing that I really love about home education, that I can kind of just work around them. And when they're really into something, they can be really into it. And when they're not, they don't have to be. So I like that. Which leads me nicely, actually, accidentally nicely, on to my next one, which is child-led learning. And that's very much about, so within schools, you know, it has been decided that by age 5 you need to do, I don't know, reading your phonics or whatever it is, and by age 7 you should be able to do this, and by age 9. And actually, you know, like think back to when they're like teeny tiny tots and they're learning to walk or sit up or whatever. And there's a range between when they normally might do these things. But suddenly when you go to school, that isn't kind of allowed for. And you've also got to think, like, there's a year's difference almost in age between your oldest of a year and the youngest. But the expectation is still that the younger one, by the end of the year, should have ticked all those boxes. And I don't really like that. So for me, it's very much, it's child-led learning, and actually we go one step further where it's self-directed learning. So it's very much, they choose, you know, I just follow their interests. So you can also, with home education, because you haven't got a class of like 30 odd kids that you've got to kind of just hit some kind of middle ground that everyone might get something out of, I can change our learning style depending on what we're doing and who it's for. So one of my children is really a visual learner. So she loves online stuff, and that is, she absorbs so much that way, and far less being sat down and being read to or that kind of thing. And I can work with that. So it doesn't mean that I don't do any of the reading or whatever, but I know that, you know, if there's a topic that she's really interested in, I'm much better helping her find kind of online visual information than I am, you know, grabbing a big pile of reference books. And I've got another one that loves books, and that's how she absorbs the information, is through reading. So, but I can, what's the word? I can kind of direct it depending on their style of learning. So that's something else I like. For me, home education provides a richer learning environment. Now, I will say, you know, schools are a real safe place for some children in difficult situations, and that's great. I'm talking very much from my point of view of why it works for us. And it provides a really rich learning environment. So my children are surrounded by people of different ages. Then if you think of school, it's a little bit odd that you're taking somebody out of their natural society, their natural environment, and the people they're surrounded in by, and you're just putting them with lots of other people very much like them, because the school catchment area is so small. So, you know, from a economic point of view, from a racial kind of background, ethnicity, all of that kind of stuff, most children, unless you're maybe, you know, in the inner cities you get more diversity, but for a lot of kids, they're just going to be sat in a classroom with 30 other children that look very much like them. They have very similar backgrounds to them. And obviously they're the same age. And that, you know, I don't socialise only with people that are 42. That would be a bit odd. You know, one of my best friends is 12 years older than me. And another of my best friends is, I don't know how much younger than me, quite a lot. That's normal, that is life. I used to love when she was alive. Some of my best conversations was going to speak to my husband's grandma. I used to go and visit her every week, and we had such similar interests, and we'd have great chats, and that's what normal life is, and that's what I want my children to carry on having. So that is a brilliant part of home education from my point of view, is that they're not being removed from society, they're just carrying on living in it and learning within a natural situation. So, you know, they're mixing with all different ages, which is really beneficial as well, in the social side of things. It's a much healthier way to socialise, you know, while they're learning in that sort of early ages. But, you know, they're with people from all walks of life, and it's a richer learning environment in terms of the activities that we can do, because we can do whatever we want. So, you know, we went to New Zealand for 3 months, and it was amazing. And the amount that they just learned and picked up and absorbed, and brilliant. And you can't recreate that kind of stuff in the classroom. And I'm not saying you have to go all the way to New Zealand, obviously. Just in our day-to-day life, we can kind of, you know, we can do any activity that you can think of. There's always a home ed group for it, basically, you know. So if they want to learn how to use the potter's wheel, they could do that. If they want to sit and do the times table, there's a group for that. There's Tai Chi, whatever, you know, the lot. It, for me, and this is actually a big sort of underlines a lot of this, it's a natural way to live. And it's kind of what I was just saying a moment ago about schools. It's an artificial environment that has been created for convenience, because, you know, if you get children around the same age, they're probably similar ability, give or take, in theory. And so you bung them all together, and you can just tell them some stuff, get them to sit down and listen to it. And it's easier, isn't it? It's much easier than having lots of children of different ages, different abilities, wanting to do different stuff. That doesn't work on a mass scale. And that's why the artificial environment of a school is there. And I prefer a natural way of learning. So there's no forced or arbitrary learning. If they're interested in something, they're learning. And actually, when they're not interested in something, they're still learning. We're learning all the time. We never stop learning. And I'm just always amazed at how much, like, my children know, and I'll think, where did you find out about that? And we have such great conversations, and it just feels so natural. And I don't have the outside, I don't know, I want to say interference, but that's maybe a bit negative. I don't mean that, but I don't know, to be sending them off, to parcel them up and send them off to somewhere for 6 hours a day or more. And then for them to come home and to have to sit and do things that we have been told that they must do, and none of this has come from me, that feels really unnatural. And I do think that during the COVID schooling that people had to do, which is a very different from home education and homeschooling, which I think most people understand, I think a lot of parents did realise a lot of weird, kind of useless stuff, some of the things that their kids are having to do all day. And it was only when it was suddenly there in their own kitchen and they were having to sit down with the child and get them to do this stuff directly that they sort of thought, why are we doing this? So for me, it's a natural way to learn, and it's a natural way to live. Oh gosh, it's going on, isn't it? I'll go quicker. We get a wider perspective from my point of view. I think partly through the socialising side of it and seeing people from all walks of life, and a wider perspective as well in terms of the education. So we can do a wider range of subjects, and we don't break it down into subjects actually, but you know what I mean by subjects. And within that, we can look at a much broader picture. So like history, for example, is really narrow in schools. I think everyone kind of accepts that. It's very male and white, our version of history that we're given. And actually we can move outside of that, and we can try to get a much more rounded view of kind of stuff that's gone on. You get no birthday disadvantage. So I have a child who's a July birthday. So in England, unless you do a special sort of application thing and have a reason why they shouldn't go in the year group, she would have been one of the youngest in her year. And that's a huge disadvantage. I was lucky. I was a September birthday when I went to school. So I was a kind of a winner from that situation. But it does affect you in every area of your life. And there's all these studies that show the effect that it has. And like CEOs are much less likely to be summer-born babies. They're likely to be like the early ones in the school year, because if you think it kind of makes sense that if a child goes to school when like they're 4 or 5, and let's say you've got September birthday, so they're just about 5 and they're learning to read, and then you've got your other child, July birthday or August birthday, who's only just turned 4, and they start at the same time, and the 4-year-old might not be able to do everything that the 5-year-old can do, obviously, because at that age that's a big age difference, and yet they're expected to, and they will see that the 5-year-old, they can do all this stuff, and why can't I do this stuff? And actually, God, maybe I'm not very good, maybe I'm a bit stupid or whatever. And that message is internalized very, very quickly, and I didn't want that for my my summer-born baby. So that was that. No disadvantage due to neurodiversity. Is that the right word? I should have thought what the right word is before I started, shouldn't I? One of my children has high functioning autism. She's super duper bright. She's brilliant, absolutely amazing person, just so kind and lovely. But she was going to really struggle with some of the stuff at school in terms of like the social expectations, in terms of just the demands that are put on them in terms of behaviour, because her brain doesn't work the same as I guess like the majority of people, although they say we're all on the spectrum somewhere, don't they? But she was going to really struggle with some of that, and we were told that she would need help within school, but she would only get that help once she started to fail. And I didn't want that for her. I didn't want to have to put her into a situation knowing that she was going to fail, to then get the help to try and build her back up again. That wasn't what I wanted to do. And so she was actually the reason that we did start to home educate, because I just thought there's got to be another way. And then I found home education and fell in love with it, and here we are. So no comparisons, no coercion, no punishments. Oh gosh. Okay, so when my daughter went to reception year when she was like 4, and they have like forgotten what they call it, because they dress it up to like positive reinforcement or that kind of thing. It's not, and children aren't stupid. It's just a way to coerce and kind of force children to behave and to do what you want them to do. And the thing is, you don't need to do that to get children to learn. They don't have to be forced into it. That is really important to understand. I don't ever tell my children to sit down to do work. I don't force them. I don't say you can have this if you do this. I don't need to. They're just learning all the time and having a nice time doing it. And in my daughter's school, they had this, like, you started off on, I don't know, like, oh, it doesn't even matter. Like, let's say you started off on the rainbow, okay, every day. And then if you did something that the teacher didn't like, then you were down on like the rain cloud. And if you did something that they thought was really good, then you might get into the pot of gold, where you'd get a chance of winning a prize at the end of the week. You know, and I just hate that. I really hate that, because it's forcing children to comply. And actually, what if they've got a really good reason for not, and they could be really absorbed in learning something, and then actually the good thing is to just abandon that and go and do what they're told. And I can see why teachers end up using it, because you're trying to control a lot of kids. But for me, that's not what education and learning should be about. So I don't like that sort of stuff. So home education is good for us because we don't do any of that stuff. And finally, it's the freedom. We just live our life how we want to live it. I can just work things around the children. They can also work around me. So I work from home, and we just coexist, and we go to groups, we see people. Well, actually not during COVID, obviously, but you know, in normal times, that's the kind of stuff we do. When we're at home, we can have days. If we all want to just sit down and watch a film, we can do that, and we can get all cozy and lovely. And then if we want to have a day out, I don't know, punting down the river or canoeing or something, we can go and do that. We can do what suits us at that time, and we don't have the kind of the pressure in terms of, you know, God, well, we've got to get this homework done, we've got to do that, don't forget you've got a test coming up, and blah 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 blah. You know, none of that's natural for me. So that was a bit of a whirlwind, wasn't it? And there's so much that I could go into about each of those, really. So do let me know. I will do another one, I think probably specifically on unschooling, because that is the specific style of home education that we do, and I think that would be useful for people to understand. But if there are questions that you've got, then do put them in the comments or thoughts or whatever, and I can then do some other videos to address those. So I hope you found this useful. I hope it's made you maybe think a little bit, and I hope it explains things so that you can understand what feels natural to us as a family. And home education rocks. So thank you for watching. Do like, subscribe and all that kind of stuff, and also follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and have a good day. See you soon.